Hello, welcome to the Indian Diaspora podcast. This is your host, Rahul. Today we have a very special guest, Prisha, and her coach, Jeremy. Prisha has just completed the English channel at a young age of 16 years, and she's here going to share her story about this experience and the Indian diaspora in the UK. Prisha and Jeremy, welcome to the show. So, Prisha, you have just created history, and I'm sure your parents and your coach are so proud of you. How do you feel about this?
I feel like there's no word to describe it. It's as if like I've actually like my dream has actually come true, and it's an experience that you only hear about like in the movies, and actually experiencing it, it just feels amazing.
Jeremy, how do you feel?
Relieved. I'm so thrilled that she made such a good job of it. It's like everything came together, and there's so many variables and so many different things can happen in the channel. The weather can change, but everything was perfect.
Excellent. I can imagine. I can imagine. Um, Prisha, tell me more about you. Where do you come from? Where do you live? Tell me more about yourself.
So we're based in like Hertfordshire, Watford. And I during my channel swim, I also did my GCSEs. So that's a really big exam over here. It's to help me get into my college. So I was doing that while balancing my channel swim training. So it was really hard because I had to give time to both because I couldn't fall behind on my exams, but I also couldn't fall behind on my swimming. So it was a busy time, but I got really good exam results, which was great. I got higher than I predicted, and then I also did really well on my swim. A funny thing about my swim was I was aiming for 12 hours, and during my swim, I lost all sense of time. So I came out thinking I got 15 hours. I was convinced I got 15 hours. So Jeremy on the boat was like, "Do you know how long you took?" And I was like, "Don't even tell me, I don't want to know." But I ended up getting 11 hours, which was really, I was so happy with that because I didn't expect it at all.
Excelling in studies and sports, that's being an ideal student there. Jeremy, tell us more about you.
Well, I'm a coach over at Watford Swimming Club. Have been for a number of years. Passionate about open water. That's what I specialise in for the club. And I'm a channel swimmer myself. I swam the channel just over 10 years ago. It took me a lot out longer than 11 hours 48 minutes. My time was 16 hours and 25 minutes, but no, I'm a lot older and not as athletically fit or as fast as Prisha, but yeah, I've got experience of it, and I think that's it's been me a great opportunity to sort of share my experience and coach her along.
Excellent, excellent. So, the English, right? A lot of athletes, swimmers have attempted this crossing in the past. Tell us more about the English Channel, right? For those who do not know the oceans or geography, tell us more about this.
So the English Channel is a swim from England to France. So we start in Dover and we end up in Cap Gris Nez, and it's the closest part from England to France. So um, the swim, so I think 2,000 people have swum it now, um, since it started, and the youngest person is 12 years old to swim it. But now the rules changed, so the youngest you can be is 16 years old. So some rules are that you have to be in a swimming costume, and you have to have one hat, otherwise it counts as guided swimming or assisted swimming, because wetsuits provide buoyancy and heat, so it basically doesn't count. You're also not allowed to touch the boat. If you touch the boat, you're disqualified. And if you have someone swim next to you, they're not allowed to go in front of you, or else you also get disqualified. So there are a lot of rules around the channel swim, but it's actually pretty easy to follow. Like at first, when I heard all these rules, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And a lot of everyone usually asks, is it non-stop? It is non-stop. You just you keep swimming without breaks, but the only breaks you can get is when you have a feed. So you have feeds on certain times depending on different people. So I had mine 2 hours, then 1 hour after that, and then when I started struggling, when Jeremy saw I needed a feed, he'd give me a feed. But they usually last around 30 seconds if you're like training. You have to train feeds as well, but hopefully 30 seconds, because if you stop for a long amount of time, then the tide is so strong that if you stop for like a minute, you could be 5 minutes behind on your swim now. So it's a lot it's a lot to take in, but in the end it was all good.
That doesn't sound easy to me, Prisha. That is amazing. Jeremy, anything you would like to add?
Well, yeah, I'd just like to say that the English Channel is one of the most iconic swims. So when people think about marathon swimming, the English Channel is what everybody knows. It's a huge achievement. But the actual stretch of water itself is also one of the busiest shipping channels. So the traffic that you get is incredible, and hats off to the pilots that navigate us across. So effectively, Prisha's swimming alongside a small fishing boat. I say small; it was a catamaran, reasonably large, but not can't cope with rough weather. But anyway, so she's swimming alongside that boat. The boat is watching all the traffic and communicating with everybody the whole while. It's been compared to trying to maneuver a snail across a motorway, because because we're moving at relatively slow pace compared to all the other traffic, and they kind of whiz past us, and the skill is to make sure that they're either going behind us or in front of us. So it's one of those stretches of water where you certainly couldn't do it unassisted, and it takes a lot of skill to get people across. But yeah, it's a challenge.
Wow. I love it. It's like a marathon, but in the ocean. And it's an iconic one. Hmm. So, Trisha, coming back to you, why did you want to swim the English Channel?
Well, obviously, this little dream started 4 years ago, back in 2020. So I was 12 years old. So, obviously, a 12-year-old saying they want to swim the English Channel isn't the most solid dream. But I wanted to do this because I wanted to prove to myself that I can do something big. Because before that, I was just a normal club swimmer who trained for fun and for socializing. But I decided that I wanted to do something bigger and for myself. So me and my family discussed the English Channel, and then we spoke to my coaches, and they directed us towards Jeremy, and that's when it started. So I remember going down to the lake and starting off with a 1K, and then Jeremy was like, "How are you feeling after 1K?" I was like, I feel good." And then I remember back in 2020, the first year of my training, I thought a 3K was good, and every day after a session from the lake, we used to sit in the car, and on the way back, we used to be like, "You did a 3K, well done." Like that's the longest distance you've done this entire year. And I remember it used to take me around 25 minutes per lap for 1K around the lake, and now I've got it to around 15 minutes a lap. So in 4 years, I've managed to cut down 10 minutes for 1K, which is amazing. And then it just shows how far you come, because even the start of this year, I remember Jeremy telling me I've got to do loads of 6 hour swims, and to me, 6 hour swims at the start of this year was even crazy, and then I ended up doing 10 hour swims. So it just shows how like it's time. It's just really weird. And then last year we also did a relay swim. Um, we did that relay channel swim with 6 other people, and we broke 8 records, and we got 9 hours 48 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's amazing. So this dream at a younger age of 12 years old, and then executing on that dream. That is so amazing, Trisha. That is so amazing. Now, Jeremy, for you as a coach, right? When a 12-year-old from South Asian Indian descent, I'm not sure how many of us have done this in the past, but you know, we somebody from Indian descent comes and says, "Hey, uh, I want to swim the English Channel," right? And I say this because in the Indian diaspora, we are known to be very good in anything intellect, be the spelling bee here in the U.S., right? Or be it entertainment, Bollywood, right? We have made a mark in many places, but sports is somewhere we are getting better, no doubt. But you don't see a lot of Indian teens doing this, right? So I come from that angle, right? So when Prisha says, "Hey, I want to swim the English Channel at the age of 12," what did you think?
Well, I was taken back, and I was so when I was first told that there was this little swimmer that wanted to swim the channel, I was intrigued, and I was looking forward to meeting her. And when I met her, I kind of sensed that she was serious. But as with all these things, it's a 12-year-old can't do anything without the support and encouragement from their mum and dad.
Yeah.
So it was a question of meeting Prisha, but also getting to know her mum and dad, because a challenge like that takes so much commitment. And it's I always kind of think, how far is somebody prepared to go? How badly do they want that? And to succeed in something like this. So we embarked on like a program which was just gently increasing the distance. And I'd like to start early in the morning, and Prisha's not very keen on starting early in the morning, and I think it's all just a question of getting to know how committed both parties were. I knew in myself that I really wanted to pass on the knowledge and the experience that I'd had, and it was just sometimes these things kind of fall together. So it's like magical, really, which is why so I'm so pleased. I couldn't be any happier now after the event, and it's a joy to sort of to talk about it and to describe the times. But it Prisha was the lady that was in the water,
Yeah.
but there were so many people around that made it happen. It's a real, it's a kind of a team sport for one person, if that makes sense. And all credit to her mum and dad, for supporting her through all of this, the hours and hours of sitting by pools and by lakes and driving all over the country to cold parts of the sea.
Yeah.
It's been a hell of a challenge. Yeah.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah. Prisha, your coach spoke about your parents, Poonam and Rahul. From your perspective, what role did they play in nurturing your dream and also being with you along the journey?
They definitely helped inspire me because my mum herself, she's an athlete. So she always helps me. Like if I ever face a mental challenge, she always um gives on what also happened to her as an athlete. So it's really nice to have someone where you can relate to. And both my parents helped. They helped if I was ever scared to do something, they'd help inspire me and give me reasons why I should do it. But they never, one thing I really love is they never forced me into doing anything. They always want what's best for me. And I'm inspired by how prepared they were for everything. For the channel swim, they had bags and bags of everything packed twice, and their dedication to me is like it just shows how much how good family is, and working like swimming with Jeremy has just made him feel like a second family to me, and I feel like the whole team on the boat has just become like we've become so close because for 4 years I've been waking up at 4 a.m. to meet my second family. So it's like it's just really nice.
Yeah, I can imagine. And hats off to the parents, Poonam and Rahul for supporting your daughter Prisha there. And Jeremy, I see as a coach when you see the commitment that the parents bring in, I'm sure your buy-in becomes more in in the person you're investing your time in, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
uh, so talk to me. I'm going to go back to the English Channel now, right? So I want to talk about the dangers of the English Channel, right? Uh, what else can go wrong as you're swimming, right? And I want to give a positive spin to that. How do you prepare for those dangers? How do you manage those risks, right? Hypothermia, for example, you know? And through your conversation, I hope to inspire and prepare other swimmers around the world who might to take an adventure like this. So I want them to be very aware of the risks or dangers of doing this, and how does one prepare for it before embarking on such a major endeavor.
Okay, well, I'll happily jump in there. I think the first thing would be to acclimatise to the there's a lot of different things that I'll sort of piece together, like the timeline that Prisha was taken along. So it's acclimatization is the key to this. So you can talk about the swimmers being a marathon swim, but it's more, so it's not like a marathon run. It's more like a marathon. Well, it is like it's a marathon run through very cold temperature. So there's a certain degree of discomfort whilst you're doing that swim. So everything is relative. So the acclimatization starts by longer and colder swims. And the body is incredible how it can develop the ability to generate its own internal heat. And there's something you're probably familiar with, which is a brown fat, which it's around the major organs, and its purpose is purely just to generate heat. But the body's clever enough that if you're in a cold environment and that's required, then it will build it. And if you're doing it repeatedly, then there becomes more of this brown fat. I mean, one of the things that Prisha, I think, enjoyed least was sitting in a cold bath for 20-minute sessions each time, just to get to the point where the body needs to generate its own heat, and then you start to shake and so forth. But that serves two purposes. It prepares the body, but more importantly, it prepares the mind. So the mind knows that what it's like to be really cold, and there are so many different degrees of hypothermia. And of course, our job on the boat, mine in particular, was to keep an eye on Prisha, to know that she was within a safe area of that process. But in terms of the dangers that you can find, hypothermia, I think, is the biggest. And sadly, we've lost swimmers who have died trying to. It's a dangerous sport, and it happens so quickly, where the swimmer can just sink, where they get so cold and they become disorientated. Secondly, that there are obstructions and things that you can swim into. So I think, Prisha, you swam into a bit of polystyrene. Well, jellyfish. There's also like a bent bit of polystyrene that happened to be. I mean, because the English Channel is not the cleanest bit of water. There's a lot of debris that's floating up and down, and one particular area is in the middle of the two shipping lanes. It's like a central reservation on a motorway, where the boats are not churning up whatever there, so that's where you get the concentration of floating rubbish and jellyfish. So there's the things that you can collide into, and then of course the weather can change. So we're relying on forecasts and the pilot's experience to say whether this area of high pressure is going to be there for the duration of the swim, but everything can change. So I think in Prisha's swim, the start was in the dark was really choppy, but we knew that was going to flatten out, and it did. So for the majority of the swim, the conditions were pretty good.
They were really good, yeah.
There were big swells, but it wasn't choppy, so there was just a lot of movement, but not high waves that were hitting her. And then towards the end, the wind picked up and it got choppy again. But so really, if you're going to prepare yourself for it, find somebody who's got some experience of it, and just get used to swimming for longer and longer times. It's a bit like the marathon again, where you wouldn't necessarily like run the full 26 miles, but we do back-to-back swims. So it would be a 7 hours on the Saturday and 6 hours on the Sunday. So you get the kind of duration, but split over 2 days. So your body gets used to, because you can't describe what it's like to be like lying down swimming for 6 hours. You have to actually know what it feels like, whether your body can cope, because there's no easy way of practicing swimming 7 or 8 hours. You have to do the 6 before it to know what the 7, the 8, the 9 feel like. So the training program's fairly intense, and there's no quick way of doing it. So, and Prisha was great. Prisha, I will say this: when she started each of those swims, she finished them. All the training swims, all the events that we did in the run up, she met so many people who have swum the channel that it became like the normal thing. Oh, everybody swims the channel, So she met some great people, and I think managed to soak up, experience, and asked all kind of questions. But she didn't once stop or get out. She's used to complain or be a little bit grumpy for the first hour or two, especially after an early start. But once she got going, she was like a machine.
Yeah.
Brilliant to watch.
No, Prisha, you write something amazing. You talk almost like meditating in the ocean while you're swimming. I feel, you have this tremendous mental strength. If only it applies to waking early, I think that's gonna make your coach happy. But, I want to know about, how did you train your mind, your mental strength, and the meditative state in which you were as you were swimming for 11 hours? Talk to me more about that.
So my mum's a really spiritual person. So I've been brought up in a spiritual way. So I've been hearing her, listen to her meditations growing up. And I remember even my cat, every time my mum started meditating, my cat used to come sleep with her. And even I used to come sit with her. It was and then I first meditated, I think, when I was 11. And I still remember that feeling. I woke up and it wasn't like a normal waking up. I just woke up and felt so fresh. Um, so my mum's a religious person, so she taught me this chant. It's the Hare Krishna chant. So I always used to chant when I'm swimming. If I'm ever going through, if my head's ever in a bad place, I used to start chanting. But the one thing I've learned from all the 4 years of training is that when you get into your head, that's the worst thing that could happen. Like, because your mind is in control of your body. And when I was swimming the channel swim, every time I thought I was cold, I'd get cold. But every time I thought I was hot, I'd get hot. So it just proved to me that your mind is in control of your body. Your body isn't in control of your mind. So I used to convince my mind that something's happening. So Jeremy told me, it was my first 10K swim, and Jeremy told me, if you get a cramp, just show it some love. And I did exactly that, and it worked. So every time during my channel swim, if something started to hurt, I'd just show it some love. I'd just focus on that body part, and I'd be like, I know you're in pain, but I need you, and this is it. Like, after this, you can relax. It's just 11 hours of pain and grit, and you're done. During the channel swim, my big problem was that I kept thinking of my swim. So for me, that is the worst thing. If I recognize I'm swimming, then it's bad. So I had to, the best thing I could do was get into that meditative state. But the chanting wasn't working for me during my swim. But then I remember watching this movie. It was about this lady called Naiad, and she used to count to 100. So I started that, but my attention span can't go to 100. So I started counting to 8, and I counted to 8 again and again and again. And most of the duration of the 11 hours, I was just counting to 8 again and again and again. And I was in such a state that even when people were waving to me from the boat to come closer, and even when the boat honked its horn, I wasn't able to recognize that people were calling. It would take a lot of noise to bring me back into the fact I was actually swimming. So it took me a few years to actually understand that that's what I had to do, but it definitely helped. I definitely started understanding that during my biggest swim last year, which was a 7 hour swim. That was probably one of my hardest swims so far because it was in fresh water. So that means there's no salt to provide buoyancy, and it means that you're more likely to cramp up. So I remember cramping up on my fingers, my arms, and my legs. So every time I stopped to feed, I'd get a cramp. So it was a difficult swim for me, and it was also last year where I had less experience. But that's where I learned that the worst thing you can do is get into your head.
Wow, that is so powerful, Trisha. That is so powerful. Hats off to your mom for being an athlete as well as a spiritual person. That is amazing. Jeremy, did you notice something different in Trisha's approach versus other athletes that you might be training?
Well, I think Prisha sort of touched on her religious beliefs, and I think that was so her endurance and her ability to withstand whatever the temperature was or whatever the conditions. I think she always had this kind of confidence that it was going to be okay. Everything's, she's being held. It's going to be fine. So she just unwavered throughout all of the swims. As I said, sometimes they were a little bit tentative to start with, but once she entered that kind of flow state, then you wouldn't disturb her. You knew that she was just in that rhythm and in that kind of headspace where time just disappears. And then you'd have to get her attention to say, okay, an hour's up. Now it's time to feed. And that's so the quicker you can get into that during an endurance or a long swim, the better the swim is. And I think once the sun came up, because obviously the first couple of hours were pitch black, and then it's starting to light up. I think that's when she got more into that state. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Excellent. The flow state that you mentioned, Jeremy, a lot of creative people, professionals, athletes go through that, be it, creating, uh, be it programming, I know a lot of coders, they're programming for 8 hours straight. A lot of athletes are training, a woodcutter might be cutting wood for 8 hours straight without realizing. And there's a philosophy of, Sun Tzu, uh, Taoism, he talks about getting into the flow state as well and sort of being in the unison with the universe. And Prisha, I'm amazed at the young age of 16, you are talking about this. That is fascinating. So I want to move forward to being from Indian origin in the UK, right? So we are the Indian Diaspora podcast, and we celebrate the stories of global Indians from all around the world. What does it mean to be an Indian origin British citizen in the UK for you, Prisha?
Um, it actually feels like I feel proud to represent India while being in the UK. Um, because I feel like certain sports there aren't many Indians who represent their country. So doing a sport where there aren't many people, it makes me feel really proud that I'm able to represent not just myself but an entire country, and it gives me hope that one day I could, like, other people could do the same. There could be, who knows, in a few years swimming could be India's most dominated sport. And like I just want to what I want to do is I want to inspire other people into getting into the sport, because I feel like sometimes if you come into a different country, you might not feel as comfortable doing anything as you would in India. but I just like at first I could say I wasn't as confident as I would be in India, but then the community that Jeremy introduced me into, they were so welcoming and so friendly that I couldn't have asked for any other people to be surround myself around. And it just shows that you don't know who you can't judge people, and you just need to get into something. You can't be scared because of who's there. You just need to go there and see how it is for yourself, because if I didn't do this, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. That one decision changed my life in
Yeah.
ways you can't even imagine. So it's really amazing what just one little thing can do.
It all begins in the mind, doesn't it? That one decision and sticking by it and meditating on it, right? And I
Yeah.
mean it from an execution devotion perspective. That is amazing. That is amazing. Prisha, what does India mean to you?
Well, in India, it literally all my relatives are there. So it every time I visit, it's like a really nice, it just feels like a holiday, and it feels like a way to relax, because we try visit India at least once a year. So any time I go there, I feel like it's just really happy, because that's the one place we don't have many relatives here, but we have a lot of family friends. So even though it doesn't feel if even though we don't have any family here, those people have made it feel like family. But once we go to India, I feel like we just feel closer to our roots. And it's just
Yeah.
happy because over here in England, it's hard to actually connect with your culture, even though there are quite a lot of festivals. Like we go to the ISKCON temple, and
Yeah.
they host loads of festivals, and we also do like Diwali here, Holi. But it's not like when once I went to India and experienced um how you celebrate festivals, it just changed my entire perspective, and it showed how different the two, even though it's one festival, the way it's celebrated is so much bigger. Like when I went to I celebrated Diwali in India once, and now coming back to England and celebrating Diwali just doesn't feel right anymore. Like
Wonderful answer. What does Britain mean to you?
Well, I was obviously born here, so I still like both countries mean a lot to me, which is why I chose a charity both in India and the UK, because I feel like it connected to me emotionally, because I am also from both India and the UK. So by choosing by choosing a charity that meant something to me, it's like both parts of me. Like I have two parts to me. One's in India and stays in India, and one's here and stays here. So to represent both countries, it's like swimming brings together the entirety of me, and swimming it makes me me. Like during the winter, I won't be able to go down to the lake, and I
Yeah.
honestly don't know what I'm going to be doing, because the lake helps me so much mentally, not only physically, but it just helps me. It's my place to like it's some people say meditating is where they feel calm, but for me, meditating at home is really hard. Like I can't do it. But when I go down to the lake, it's my meditating space. So it's just nice.
That's amazing. This dual identity of being Indian as well as being British. I think you have the best of the both worlds for you, and to be able to be fluid across both the cultures. That's amazing. Um, you mentioned about the charity, and you have raised a decent amount for the charity through this film. Talk to me more about the charity, what it does, and why did you choose this charity once again?
So I'm raising money for the charity Akshaya Patra UK. So this charity helps children both in India and the UK, and it helps provide them a good education and also food. So in the UK, it provides after school meals and in school meals for children who sometimes won't be able to get meals after school. And in India, it helps children get an education, because some children in India aren't able to get food outside of school. So then by giving children meals in school, it not only helps them go to school, but it also gives them food. So it gives them food and an education, which I thought was really great, because being from both countries and experiencing both, it just changes your perspective. And I can fast for a day max, and that too is knowing that I have a meal at the end of the day. But I can't imagine being in the situation where I might not have a meal the next day. So it just puts my eyes into reality. Like I can't imagine how people do it. So by raising money to this charity actually means a lot to me, both because it's just, I feel like emotionally attached to these kids now.
Yeah. More power to the charity. They're doing excellent work. Jeremy, we're speaking about India here, right? And I asked you, have you been to India? And you said no, right? But I genuinely want to know. India is changing, right? What is the perception of India, the new India today, in among the British people? And what are your thoughts of India? And which places in India would you want to travel? And I want to tie that point to the diaspora, the Indian diaspora in Britain, right? And as you as from Britain, right? What contribution could the Indian diaspora bring to Britain? For example, we are in business, right? We are in education. How do you see the Indian diaspora in UK? As somebody who's British, but back to India. What do you think of the new India now?
Oh, well, I think, I mean, as a progressive country, it's just, our perception of it in England has changed dramatically over the last 30 years. And I think, me personally, my experience of Indian people in the UK, um, I've what I do know is that they have always put 100% into everything that they do. My experience of my school friends that were Indian, they were always at the top of the class. They were never available to come out and play of an evening because they were learning the piano, or they were, there is certainly a kind of a driven parental
Yeah.
sort of push and an aspiration, which is admirable, and yeah, I think very strong business, very supportive of their own communities, and putting much more back into the local communities where they live. So I haven't been to India. Mumbai is somewhere I'd like to go. Obviously Goa would be on the list as well, but mainly for the warmer water, so I could go and swim for longer times. But
We have
yeah,
a huge coastline. We have a huge coastline, from western part of India uh,
yes,
to the southern part. It's the Arabian Sea. And for the eastern part of India, which is the Bay of Bengal, and great seafood, great coastline. In my opinion, beyond the cities, if you go to really smaller towns or
right.
smaller resorts, that's where the ocean is cleaner, pristine, beautiful. I'm not sure if you can swim in that, but it's the beautiful coastline that you can enjoy. Um, but thank you for sharing your perspective there, Jeremy.
I mean, I
Uh,
will just add this is that you know they sort of mentioned it earlier. I feel like I've been brought into the family, and I've absolutely loved it. It's been completely, it's just been wonderful.
yeah,
I'll always treasure the
yeah,
moments that we've shared, and the
yeah,
laughs that we've had.
yeah,
And it's just really, I feel very welcomed and very privileged to sort
yeah,
of being part of this. Yeah, no, it's been a great sort of cultural experience for me.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been great.
That that's amazing, Jeremy. There's a lot of love and affection in Indian families, and I'm so glad that that poured over to you as Prisha and the parents. They worked on a common mission. Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, Prisha, you mentioned about your cousins and your parents, sorry, your family back in India, right? Um, when you land in India, uh, what are the things that you see the sights and smells and food and people, right? What are the things you're confused by that comes sudden to you, right? As a British Indian, what are the things you love and understand, right? So I want to understand what's new and alien for you, right? You don't understand it. And what do you love and appreciate? You mentioned festivals, for example. Uh, so give me your perspectives on that.
Yeah, so I remember, well, when I think of it, like every time I think of going to India, there's this one time where I remember. So we always land in Bombay, and I always remember going like stepping off the plane and just the humidity hitting your face, and that one airport smell. And then I remember, like, I'm not sure if you've been to that airport before, but
Yeah,
you exit and then there's this massive water, I think it's a waterfall,
yeah,
and there's just a line of people waiting. And as soon as you exit, it's just like my hair goes frizzly and I've already started sweating. And just the smell, it's not even food, it's just the smell of humidity. And
yes,
like I don't even know if it's a good smell, but it just reminds me of home. Like
yeah,
every time I smell it, it just I like I know and it's like we're going to India soon. And I
yeah.
can just every time I imagine walking out, and that's just my favorite. It's one of my favorite feelings. Like there's not even a word to describe it. I actually love it.
I know what you mean. I completely know.
Um, and then so that only lasts like a few minutes because then we have to endure the 3 hour ride to Pune. So
Oh,
that's it's sitting in the taxi, the leather
yeah,
seats, and your skin like sticking. It's just ugh. But then I always remember in Pune we have like it's a little road. So I remember driving down the little road and then just seeing all the houses go by. And when I was little, I used to tell them to I used to force my parents to tell them to drop me at the start of the road, just so I could bring all the cats and tell them to follow me home. Because my grandparents have this little outdoor area and all the cats go to that one area, but only when me and my brother are home. Otherwise, they never come. So when I was little, I used to just bring all the cats and let them know I was here, and I used to force my family to buy bags and bags of cat food so we could feed them all. And that's strange to me how many street cats and street dogs there are because everywhere I go, there are loads, and they're so friendly. Like they don't do anything to you. The most they do is come up to you and sniff you. And I remember we went on holiday, I think Rajasthan, and I made friends with a pet dog, and I started crying and screaming because I couldn't take it home. This was
oh,
before we had any pets, but it was really nice. And also the people in India, like we don't have street food shops here, but I remember we go get I forgot what you call it now. It's where you have the balls of liquid and then you Barney Booty, yeah.
Manipur,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. Barney Booty. I can really so
Usually,
we went to the shop. It's always the same shop. We had Barney Booty and they used to give you one by one different spices. Like, do you want it spicy? Do you want it hot? And they used to give you one like as soon as you finish, they have another one. And
yeah.
it's like you're friends with everyone there because everyone speaks to each other. It's like a big community. Like even if you don't know each other, it's fine. um, and it feels like home. Like even though I don't visit it much,
Yeah.
it feels like home,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
just
I know that feeling, right? While your home is Britain, and it feels like home once you land in India as well, and that feeling is very special. It's like, do you love your mom or your dad more? You love both of them. You know, it's a very special feeling to have. Amazing. So you mentioned festivals, right? What else? And you mentioned Pani Puri, which is amazing. What else do you love about India that you don't get to see in the UK?
definitely my grandparents. I have so my mum's side, my mum's family, and my dad's family, both of them, because I never get to see them. They don't visit England much, but my grandma's cooking. My mum's mum's cooking, it's it's a taste that I can I can never forget. It's so it's so good. Um, and then it's like every family member has a different thing that I miss about them. Like my cousin's sister, she's got a laugh that it's stuck in my head. It's an infectious laugh. And then my auntie, I sing, so I get the singing from her, and she wants she had like a performance on stage, and I was in India for I think a month, and that 1 month she just let me come on stage and she taught me how to dance, and then we got a standing ovation. So she just brings me so many experiences. And then my mama, he was teaching me how to ride a bike. That's where I learned how to ride my first bike. So it's like all my even though I don't visit it much, all my memories are there, and it's because of my family. Like I didn't know how big of a difference family makes, because you don't know many people. Like I hear my friends say, "Oh, I'm visiting my grandparents this weekend." I've never thought of it. I've never thought of the fact I can't visit my grandparents 1 week. So it's like you don't know the feel. Like I didn't know that having your family 5 minutes away from you could make such a difference until I'm actually in India, because
Yeah.
it's I don't know how to describe it. And also
Yeah.
rickshaws. I love rickshaws. They it's weird. I just love them.
Yeah. It's so open and the wind is blowing across your hair.
Yeah.
So amazing.
And
Yeah.
the smell of the roads. The, yeah, it's not a nice smell, but I just love I also like it. It's
You know, yeah, for I'm sure there's a lot of diaspora kids from all around the world, Australia to USA, watching this, and they're gonna relate with your experience. Nothing replaces family and that bonding, that safe space that they provide, and the food and the culture that's so beautiful. Um, and about the smell, I just want to say to our international viewers here, different cities in India are different. Bombay is very humid. It's a very humid place. But if you land in Delhi, it's a very different experience. If you land in Bangalore, it's a very different experience. And Chennai or Madras is very different. India is a large continent, so all the diaspora kids out there explore India uh, and travel in different parts of the country. It's a beautiful, beautiful land. Indian food, Jeremy. Now that you're part of the family and her grandmother cooks very delicious food. I'm sure you're going to get a piece of it in the future someday.
I have. In fact, every time I come round here, I'm always fed. And we've been out for some meals. They've treated me to some wonderful meals. And there's nothing better than so I'm vegetarian, and Poonam really just is always manages to choose. She says, Jeremy, you're going to like this, and every time she'll find something that's just different and delicious. So I love the food, absolutely. I really, it's a treat to come around, and I always like want to make excuses for coming around just for the food. You know?
Yeah. We have a saying in Indian culture, Jeremy, called Atiti Devo Bhava, which means a guest is like a god. Uh, and we ensure we give the best of the goodies, food, to our guests. So I'm not surprised Poonam, gives the best of Indian cuisine to you. Um, I just want to understand the cuisine point from a UK perspective. I mean, British cuisine and Indian cuisine are now intertwined. There are really amazing Indian restaurants in Britain. There's something called Balti cuisine uh, in the UK, right? The tikka masalas, the vindalus, all of them are so popular. Do you have any comments, Jeremy, on how the British population has adopted Indian cuisine into their culture? And how do you see Indian food from your perspective?
Well, I think it's always been popular. I think it's been embraced, and I think it tends to be. Well, I know from my experience when I was young, we would go after the pub. We would then go to the Indian restaurant because they would stay open a little bit longer, and we could have the food and then continue the evening.
Yes.
Um, but pressure, but there has been a growth in like Indian street food restaurants here in the UK. So I think they're offering sort of smaller dishes, lots of little, we went to a restaurant, didn't we, just up the road, which was which was smaller dishes. That was, you work your way through the menu of like little tasters, and that was not your traditional curry. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'd much rather
Yeah.
small, like spicier, testing kind of things.
Trisha, he has to try pani puri.
Okay, yeah, I want to try that.
Yeah. He really likes paneer.
Oh yeah, paneer, I'm big.
But pani puri or those street vendor dishes are on a different level. Each and every dish is an experience. So, Jeremy, you got to try that. Um, so, Prisha, we'll move on to the community in Watford and your hometown or possibly London, right? Could you describe the Indian community, the Indian diaspora in Greater London area? How do you socialize? You mentioned going to festivals. Tell me about your school friends. Um, Tell me about the Indian diaspora in the London area.
Um, well, I've made two really really good friends. I met two friends. One is from Pune. She also speaks Marathi. So I met her at 6 years old, I think, in school, and then another friend. And we're all Asian, so we all
Yeah,
connect. And I've been friends. We've kept in touch since 6 years old to 16 years old. So we had our 10-year friendship anniversary, I think, a few months ago. Um, but I think just having a few like Indian friends is so good because I had another group of friends and we celebrated Dandiya together. We went to the hall, we started dancing, we do the celebrations together, and even if I don't have those friends, we do it like I do it with my mom's friends. I remember my mom did like a holy fun run where they run through inflatable obstacle courses and throw colours at each other. I remember she did that one day and she invited me along. Um, and she's such and there are so many people, like my friends' parents, they invite us to Ganpati, they invite us to like numerous different occasions, and
yeah,
it's just so nice to be invited to this stuff because it just shows that you're not alone. Even
yeah,
if even if you're like the only Indian person in your class,
yeah,
there's still such a big Indian community. Like even the temple, we go to the temple and there's so many people from different backgrounds, but they're all there to celebrate one thing. It just makes you feel like part of a community, which yeah.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So you have three homes now, right? You have, India, you have your community and you have the larger Britain. Have you traveled in larger Britain area? Have you been to the Scottish Highlands, for example, or Wales?
The most traveling I've done is for swimming. I spent a lot of time in the Lake District, it's a really nice place, and then
Yeah,
um I don't think I've been to Scotland, but I've been to a lot of places around Europe. We did a Europe trip, so that took us to
yeah,
most countries in Europe, which is amazing. It's
right.
such a beautiful place.
Yeah, I love the English countryside, the rolling hills, the cottages.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So do explore your backyard as well. It's amazing. I'm sure you're going to do that with time. So we'll go towards the last part of our discussion. We'll come back to swimming. So Prisha, at this age now, 16, you've made a mark. Um, you are one of are you the youngest swimmer at 16 who has done this, or there are other younger people?
I'm one of the youngest people. There
You
have
you
been other 16-year-olds to
yeah,
swim it because there's also been a 12-year-old because the rules changed. But
yes,
I'm one of the youngest British Indians to swim it.
got it.
Yeah.
And is it right to say, are you the youngest Indian origin swimmer to cross this English Channel?
I'm not sure.
You don't know
No,
that. You don't know
no,
that,
we
yeah.
don't know.
It's going to be one of the youngest, but
Definitely one of
irrespective of
the.
that,
Yeah.
it is a great feat, right? So what I want to ask, Prisha, where do you want to go from here? I know that might be a tough question, right? But you are a soul with a strong mind, right? You made that decision and you made it happen. Um, do you have an idea of
Yes. It's
Very
weird.
incredible.
Right before this, we were actually discussing this. We were having a meeting on what I should do next, and I was telling Jeremy how it's like I've got an addiction. Like I'm addicted to this sport, and I just keep wanting to do something bigger and bigger. And then he was telling me, okay, but if you do the two-way channel, which is England to France and France to England, after that you're gonna say I want to do something even bigger than that. So it just made me realize how addicted to this one thing I am. Even if it's a good addiction, I know I'm not going to be able to like stop. And I know if I do something bigger than the channel, which I will, I'll have to do something bigger than that. And eventually, it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. So I may not know what I'm going to do right now, but I definitely know it's going to be bigger than the channel because I've met so many channel swimmers. It just seems like everyone I know is swum the channel now. It just seems like this little thing.
No, that's very wise of you. And you're going to look back in this podcast, and I'm sure you're going to do something even better, greater, grander, and you're going to reflect back on this wisdom that you just mentioned here. And Jeremy, thank you for being a true coach at this point as well. Now, Prisha, if there's a young girl out there, anywhere in the world, watching you and being inspired by your journey so far, right? What would you say to that young girl?
Difficult question. If I was a 12-year-old, if I was a little girl and I was about to swim the channel, I think someone would have needed just to tell me that you've got now and you've got the rest of your life. But now is better because you've got nothing to lose. There's nothing holding you back. And if you say I'll do it later, you're just going to keep pushing it back. That's something I definitely know because I say I'm going to do a lot of things later, but I think if you've got something in your head to do, the best thing you can do it is the best thing you can do is go for it because the biggest thing holding you back is yourself. And I think you are your number one enemy. That's what someone wise once told me.
Very powerful. Jeremy, your words to that little girl anywhere around the world.
I would say stick with your dream. It can happen. Just believe in yourself and you can make it work.
Awesome. With that note, it was an amazing, soulful discussion. Thank you, Prisha and Jeremy, for sharing your journey on crossing the ocean and being also wise about forming a vision from the foundation you have built in life so far, right? Um, more positive wishes to you, Prisha, from the entire diaspora. We all love you. We are proud of you. And we are rooting for you to succeed meaningfully in the days ahead. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Closing the podcast here. Thank you for watching, everybody.
Thank you.